Hello, my name is Matthias Elsässer. I'm the author of the book Intelligent Data-Driven Marketing, and today I want to speak about the time dimension in marketing. So last time we talked a lot about the initial frame of reference. So I've shown you an example where I've thrown balls towards an audience. And now we can use this system of reference and try to think about different marketing models. So I think the first thing is that I said we just measure impressions and we measure conversions. That's the measures we find in this initial frame of reference. And for sure that's not 100% true, because what we measure is not only that we have one impression. What we should do is we have one impression with a timestamp. And that's introducing of the time dimension. Because if we're doing this, what we now can do, we can build the easiest KPI you can think about, and that's a trend. So we no longer just have a snapshot where we just see this is the amount of impression we have thrown towards the audience. What we are able to see here at minute 0, we had 0 impressions. And then step by step, we see impressions going up here and somewhere going into a stable tableau once we have finished the campaign. And this is what time dimension helps us. So if we start introducing the time dimension in marketing, this means, we are able to see trends. And we all know trends are super important. We want to see this here. So we can now start calculating the first KPI, and we can measure something like a marketing pressure onto our audience by just seeing the first deviation of a trend, which is nothing else than how much impressions I've sent to them within a tiny time frame. So this is the first thing we see if we start introducing time. But this is not all, and I think that's the important piece, because last time I said we shouldn't focus on too much KPIs and measures. Instead, we really should focus that we measure every impression and every conversion in our ecosystem. If we are doing this, we are then able to see that we have thrown with multiple strikers. There was Mr. Paid, Mrs. Owned, Mr. Earned. There was this automatic robo guy who was thrown automatically balls toward our audience. And what we now can do, we can put them at the end just in a stable stack. We can say this was the first one, this was the second one, and this was the third one. So, and if we know, as we have a timestamp, we know exactly the row of these balls, how we have thrown them towards the audience. And this is what we call multi-touch attribution. Because what we are now able to see is that a social display combined with a moving image or as a pre-roll on YouTube, together with a newsletter, works quite better in comparison to if we do it differently. If we first send a newsletter and then start, or something like that. It's just an example. I don't know whether this is true or not. That depends really on the campaign. But this is what multi-touch attribution is. So we don't care when we are sending this. So what we really are only doing is putting them into a sequence. And often I get asked, where's then the difference to marketing mix modeling, which I'm doing since multiple years. Marketing mix modeling is coming top down. This is looking at the full-blown ecosystem and just saying, I count exactly not this trend with the time dimension. I just neglect the time dimension, and that's the reason why it's quite easy. And what I'm doing, I just put in the amount of impression I've sent out, and I just check, and there the time comes back, the incremental sales uplift, due to this implication that I've sent impressions out to them. So marketing mix modeling is just looking at my different balls and at the strikers I've on the playing field and try to mix them up and find out what is the incremental sales uplift of buying my tiny cups here. The other thing is, if we are going into multi-touch attribution, this is really putting them in a sequence. And what we are doing, and I think that's really the masterpiece then when we're introducing the time dimension, this is if we talk about demand windows. Because what we now can do, instead of just putting them into a sequence, where we say, okay, this is the sequence we run through, we really look, what is the real timestamp on one? And instead of just having them in a sequence, we say, okay, we send first one out, then we wait for a long time, and then we send two shots in a really short stint out to him. So what we are now doing is we are really thinking about, when do we exactly send this? Oh, it's in the morning when he's at at the car, when he's hearing the radio, then we should send out a voice message towards him. If he's sitting in front of his computer, we can use digital display and pre-rolls or whatever. And then finally, if he is out going for shopping or whatever, we use out of home, or in the night, he's maybe at cinema, we use cinema, plus the own pieces of newsletter, and then get combined. And we really use, oh, this was sent out here, this was sent out here, and this was sent out here. And this is what we then call demand windows. And if we are now thinking about that we introduce the second time layer, we can just mirror this against the time layer of our final audience and say, look, there's Matthias on the opposite side, and he has a demand window and is willing to buy something more in the evening than in the morning. So we should then start scheduling our own demand windows, which we are able to measure, towards the demand windows of my counterpart, the final audience. And this is what it makes really complex. And as you can see, a really easy model where just measure impression and conversions can be complex. At the moment you start thinking about the underlying equation, what you can do with them. Then suddenly we are talking about a really complex multi-touch attribution, marketing modeling, and demand windows.